Hello everybody and welcome to the Midnight McBride Show, episode number 54. And this show is called The Roots of Life. And the reason for that is I have the founder of Roots for Life in the studio with me today, Debs Brookes. Hello, Debs.
Hello. Thank you for inviting me, Patrick.
It's my absolute pleasure, Debs.
Great.
Absolute pleasure. So I think you know how the show works, and what we normally do is we find out about somebody's journey and what motivates them, what drives them and brought them into this present moment. And we also find out a little bit about what makes you tick.
Sure.
Yeah. We actually met were introduced through Greg.
Yes.
Greg's been on the show, Greg Garrett.
Yeah, that's right.
Greg has a retreat in the lakes with his lovely partner Sam, and he also does the quantum questions with Lucy.
Yes.
Yes. And he sent me an email and said, this lady might be interesting. And I already knew who you were.
Ah, yes,
I hadn't thought of you for the show, and I hadn't approached you for the show, but I'd seen your stuff. It's quite prevalent on social media, and I'd seen some of the events you were doing. And yeah, within a 5-minute phone call, I thought, yeah, we'll get this lady on. This will be a good show. So
Thank you.
yeah. So initially, Debs, you're from Pudsey.
I'm from Pudsey, West Yorkshire, yes.
Pudsey, and I couldn't think, why do I know Pudsey? But it's Pudsey Bear.
It is. Pudsey Bear was, that's where it originated from, I believe. And interestingly, my uncle was involved in the very first bringing it together kind of thing.
Pudsey Bear?
Well, yes, the start of it, yes.
Right.
Because my uncle he has lots of estate agents, or did at the time, in and around Pudsey, so he was involved in the start of it.
Yeah. In your show notes, we have the pre-show chat and we talk about your journey, and the childhood's usually one of the most interesting bits for me because most people, not everybody has a smooth ride and, you know, different things happen, but the first thing you mentioned in your show notes was tripe.
Oh.
So, and it was, I think you said it was your gran getting it for your granddad. Is that right?
Yes. So my grandma, my dad's mum, I used to go there most weekends, and bless her, she used to take me into Bradford Market, and it was always every Saturday she'd go and get tripe and udder for my granddad.
Yeah, see,
I know, it sounds lovely, doesn't it?
Nowadays, it's funny, we'll all eat processed food, and
Yeah.
a lot of people eat processed food. It's terrible for you and it's full of chemicals, and that sounds repulsive, but it's probably far better for you than what we're eating now, isn't it? You know?
Probably.
Sounds disgusting.
It does sound disgusting. I have tried it, you know, and interestingly, when I was pregnant with my daughter, that's what I was into, tripe. I was eating pounds of tripe. I mean, and the thought of it.
You said, Debs, that you were a quiet child and that you spent quite a lot of time in nature. And
I did, yes.
In sort of forests and related to dogs.
Yeah, I was very quiet as a child, really quiet, very shy. Yeah, completely different to what I am today, but very solitary. And I preferred the outdoor. I love the outdoors now, but I would often, it was my space to go, and you know, there was some woods near my dad's, so I used to go there every day, and I used to, because we didn't have a dog ourselves, I used to go and tap on neighbours' doors, can I take your dog out for a walk? That was like my life really at the time.
I think most children, if you put them in nature, are in bliss, because you've still got that sense of awe as a child. You look around and you know, you see a rainbow, or you see a flower, and you think, how's that possible? And it blows your mind. And as we get older and consumed and we're stressed and with the material world, we find we disconnect from that, you know. And I think children in particular still have the big toe permanently dipped in the spirit realm. They're still connected. And then as we grow older, we're like a flower that's plucked and we become disconnected from source.
We do. And, you know, that was a big part of my childhood, really, being in nature. I just loved going in the wood, and I still do. It's just a really magical place.
Yeah, I connect with nature at every available opportunity. And with everything that's going on now, if you've got the TV on and lots of people are stressed and depressed and worried, and if you turn the TV off, go outside in nature and look at the sky, there's nothing wrong.
Yeah.
Everything's perfect.
Plus, my dad was very much, it was never for the TV at all. So we didn't really, was brought up really with having the TV on a lot of the time.
Yeah. I haven't watched a television programme for months.
Well, you're not missing anything.
No, and don't watch the news either.
No, certainly not the news.
No. And yeah, the bit I found quite upsetting is the fact that your mum asked you to call her auntie.
She did, yes, sadly. And it was quite difficult at times when we used to go see her. We only saw her for 1 week every year when we were children.
Why did she leave, Debs?
Well, it was a lot of, I suppose, the relationship breakdown with my dad, as much as anything. So my dad was quite, well, as she recalls, quite a big drinker.
Right.
So I guess, there was a lot of at the time, a lot of mental cruelty going on. And so she found it very difficult to stay with him. So I guess she got to a point where she had to leave. But the difficulty for myself, looking back as a mother, I find that difficult, a mum leaving the children.
The thing that's quite unusual about that is the fact that your mother left, and normally it's the other way around. The mother would normally stay with the children. And you said that your father was a plumber and that he sort of took care of you and had to quit his job. And how did he manage? It must have been difficult.
I think it was very difficult. I mean, he'd been a plumber all his life. And then I guess because we were quite young, he wasn't able to get to work at 7 a.m. in the morning like he would normally. So for him, he quit his job. So then obviously I had to get us to school and things like that and make sure we had our breakfast. So I'm really grateful to my dad for what he did. Yeah. I think the difficulty with my dad is the fact that, I think looking back, like nowadays you've got people who are on the spectrum. Yeah. As in autism. Yeah. I think my dad would have had he been diagnosed, I think that's what he would have been classed as having. And so he was very eccentric, what you would call eccentric.
And so why did your mum want you to call her auntie?
I guess for her, though, it was probably when she'd met people in Morecambe when she lived there. I guess for her it was very difficult that she had left her children, so she probably didn't want her friends knowing that. Yeah.
I know you said she only saw you once a year, and you did say you're okay to talk about this.
I am okay to talk about it.
Yeah, I don't want to delve if you're not comfortable, but why only once a year? Because she just didn't want to be around your father? Because there's plenty of parents now that they don't get on at all, but they sort of see the kids and they just sort of drop them outside the house and this kind of thing, and they find a way, don't they?
They do find a way, and I've often thought of that. Why didn't she see us more often than that? But her story is that my dad wouldn't let her, and who was the right one. See,
I suppose then growing up, your father was, he was your parental figure. Not having your mum around and stuff, so that will have, it will have a big impact on you, won't it?
It was, and in them days, we're talking in the 70s. Very few people, especially like when I was at school, there was very few people whose parents were divorced. Yeah. So you did feel a little bit like. There was there was people who were divorced, but generally it was the mum bringing them up. There was none I knew that the dads were. So for my dad to do that back in them days with no support, I think, I admire him greatly for that. Yeah.
Was he an affectionate man?
No, not at all.
Because this is where the children normally stay with the mother and see the father as opposed to the other way around, but obviously the mother's nurturing and holds them and affectionate and stuff, and some men aren't, are they?
He wasn't affectionate, but he showed it in different ways, and he was a really good dad, and I have a great admiration for him.
You said, Debs, that when you were growing up, you sort of hung around with the swatty ones, that came up in the spell check, but the kids that were studying, that wanted to learn. Yeah. And you were more of that ilk, whereas your sister was the sporty one, and your dad being a sport Billy, a big sports fan, and he favoured your sister, or so that's how you felt.
I wouldn't say he favoured her, more. I think my dad was very into his sport.
Yeah.
Usually, I mean, from a young child, he was into football. He was obsessed with cricket, as Yorkshire men are, some of them, and he played table tennis for Yorkshire. So my sister was a fantastic sportswoman. She was the best at athletics, running.
Yeah.
I wasn't, and I'm still not very good at sport. So whereas I was very studious, Karen was the opposite of that. And I think my dad was really impressed with where she got to with it.
Yeah. Well, it's what he knew, isn't it?
It
The
is.
sport,
Yeah. I mean, and he couldn't understand people who didn't talk sport. He thought, what sort of people don't like sport? You know.
So tell us, Debs, about Domino the sheep. This sounds like... This
Domino the
sounds
sheep.
bizarre, but there's a story about the sheep at school, isn't there?
Yeah, interestingly, like I said, I was very much into animals and still am.
Yeah.
I was in the form of the Miss Skelton, who was the rural science teacher for about 3 years. So every lunchtime and any spare time I had was spent with the animals, mucking out, taking the slops from the actual school canteen. And we had a sheep called Domino.
Yeah.
And we're talking a school of quite large at the time, say with about 1,000 odd people. So Domino, interestingly, every time that I would go past, she would run from one end of the pen to the other.
So she knew who you were then.
Yes.
She probably sensed your energy, didn't she?
She did, yeah. So she was amazing, and I used to take all sorts of things home. I took Frida the duck home for the weekend.
And you also took some poor eggs home, and they got... well, you were looking after them. They got double turned, and
They did. Yeah. So Miss Scotland said, would you like to try and hatch some eggs? I was absolutely elated about that. I said, oh, yes, I'm really excited. So I told my dad when we took the incubator home, they only have to be turned every so often.
Yeah.
You mustn't touch it. Let me just do it. But no. So I was turning them. He was turning them. So on the day of hatching, there was no eggs, and then another day went by and still no eggs.
So they're probably damaged because they've been turned.
Yes, of course.
I suppose if you turn them and your dad turn them, then they're always the same way up, aren't they?
Yes.
If you're with me, because you do one turn and your dad's done a second turn, it puts them back where they were, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And then so what then happened was there was this horrendous, couple of weeks went by and I'm thinking, oh, they've not hatched. This horrendous smell of eggs.
Yeah.
Bad eggs.
Maybe tell us, Debs, about your neighbour. Is it Mr. or Mrs. Scofield?
Mrs. Scofield, yes. She was a lady that lived across the road, up the road from where I lived, but really prevalent in my childhood.
Probably because obviously Mum's not around. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you said you spent hours with her.
I did, yeah. Nearly every day I went there from finishing school. I would go and sit with her till about tea time. Obviously, she taught me how to bake, knit, crochet.
Yeah, the things that mums and daughters do, really,
yes.
Isn't it? Yeah.
So she was a big part of my life, and gardening, all that sort of stuff. And she was a real dog lover, like myself.
I absolutely love dogs.
Same.
Absolutely love them. We had one recently, and because of an allergy, my partner Willow had an allergy to the dog, a bad reaction, unfortunately. So he's now at a farm in Wales called Rockford, and he's training to be a television and movie star.
Wow.
And he's a little chihuahua called Bruno. But the point is, this year I had 4 people I know die, and I've been to the funerals, and I didn't cry once because I'm a Buddhist, and so I'm very okay with death. We talk about it a lot. It's very healthy to talk about it, I think. When Bruno left, I cried for a week. I mean, literally for a week. Every night I went to bed. I was bursting into tears during the day. I missed him at night. I mean, I could cry. I could easily cry now if I thought about it. And it breaks my heart. It was such a beautiful little man, you know. And he was, all he had was love, enthusiasm, and it made my heart sing, So when I was a child, I was frightened of dogs, and I got attacked by a dog.
Right.
And I had a bad bite on my leg, and I've had a couple of instances with dogs, and so I was frightened. And because I had fear, whenever I went near a dog, they started barking. They can sense if you're frightened, it puts them on edge, because they have the ability to sense energy far better than humans do. And so I didn't really go near dogs for years, and then this was the first dog I'd ever had myself, and yeah, I could, human beings overthink everything, and they're stressed and anxious, and the only animals that experience stress and anxiety are the ones that are around humans. In nature, they're healthy, they don't get cancer, things like this, and the diseases that are predominantly caused by stress,
I absolutely love dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lady that's been on the show a few times, a good friend of mine, Sally Bolton, and she has a dog called Cooper, and he's a therapy dog. So what they do is, if you think your dog might be suitable, it goes away, the dog is then assessed, you get a certificate, and then she takes it to see, old people's homes, schools, things like this, and she gets a small amount of money, but she gets paid to take the dog out to spend time with people.
That's
because
lovely,
it's such a beautiful dog.
Yeah.
But they can only do it with certain dogs, and I think it's a Labrador, but beautiful dog.
And I've got a Cocker Spaniel now.
They're full of beans,
She's
aren't
beautiful. Daisy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, they need a lot of exercise, and they're all a bit mental as well, aren't they?
She's so they're so unconditional. I think dogs, they're always there for you no matter what.
You mentioned in your notes, Debs, that you had quite a bad bout of flu, and it was your mum that actually came to get you. Mm-hmm. How old were you at this point?
16.
Right, and see, this again seems unusual because your mum obviously left and didn't see you very often, but on this occasion she was there for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was very ill when I was about 16 with this flu for about 2 to 3 weeks. I mean, really bad flu. And one of the neighbours who knew my mum must have told her, and my mum came to get me.
Right, well, that's nice.
Yes.
Yeah. So did you go and stay with her then?
I went to stay with her in Morecambe.
Right.
And I'd already had a place at Park Lane College in Leeds, Secretarial College.
Right.
But my mum decided to put me into Lancaster and Morecambe College.
It must be quite nice. I mean, I love being by the sea.
Yes.
The sea, walking by the sea. I find it very soothing, inspirational. Probably once a month at least, we'll go and drive to the coast and have a walk on the front, and
Sure.
sometimes it's 4 times a month. And Morecambe in particular, I think it's so much nicer than Blackpool, because it's a bit less commercialised.
Morecambe's got a beautiful, the sunsets are just amazing, aren't they?
We'd park up at sort of the north end,
Yeah.
and walk all the way down. So, but we'd do like a 12-mile walk all the way down to Heysham, around the coastal path there, right down to the power station. And there's a little cafe there where you can get an ice cream and a coffee or something, and then come back. And it's an out and back. It's a straight walk, but beautiful.
Yeah,
beautiful.
it's a gorgeous, and also with the Eden project coming, hopefully in 2 or 3 years, I think Morecambe will be back where it was.
Morecambe's got the new bypass as well that's opened, hasn't it? Because for a long time, if you wanted to get to Morecambe, you had to go through Lancaster over that bridge, and tea times it could take you an hour to get over the bridge. And that's why the property in Morecambe was so cheap for a while.
It was a nightmare. But that link road has opened up a huge.
Yeah.
For businesses and
property prices are going up a little bit.
Property prices are going up, massively, which is great news.
So going to the Secretarial College, you then became, you said, a bit of an extrovert, and overnight you went from being shy to discovering boys.
Well, I did. Interestingly, because when I was back at school, I was very shy and really like.
Bit reserved
and whatever. And then when I moved to Morecambe, I felt like nobody knew me there, did they? So I didn't have to put on this like shy. Well, I don't know. I think because I'd met some lovely friends at the college, and then we started going out.
I think sometimes as well, just a fresh start.
Yeah.
You've grown up with people, and you feel like you have to be a certain way, and sometimes when you meet new friends or even talking to strangers, it's so much easier when you can just you can be yourself. And that's obviously the goal. We're all trying to be ourselves now, and a lot of us are, but some people aren't, and their life is they feel like they have to be a certain way, and it's exhausting. I used to be like that.
Yeah, and it was great because I started going out and going to the pubs and,
And you were a new romantic.
I was a new romantic and I had spiky hair, really spiky hair. Out here.
Yeah. If you go through, say you had mods and punks, and new romantic is, sort of Spandau Ballet and that kind of look, and Mark Almond and all this kind of thing.
It was.
And a lot of men wore makeup.
They did.
Didn't they?
Yes.
But not necessarily in a pretty way, like just blacked out eyes, like the Cure guy, this kind of thing.
Yeah, I love the Cure.
It was certainly a fun period, wasn't it?
It was a fun period, and my favourite band, and still are U2.
Yeah.
So I was mental on U2. And loved The Mission and all them so music's a big part of my life, definitely.
Do you remember The? Have you heard a band called Infected
The.
and stuff like yeah. You forget about the age gap, and I have people in here. I've had a couple of people in this studio, and I mention music, and sometimes it staggers me. I spoke to somebody recently, and Bill Withers came on Lovely Day, beautiful record.
Oh yes.
Yeah. And because this lad was like 15, 20 years younger than me, he'd never heard the record, and I went, what, you've never heard Bill Withers? And I couldn't get my head around it because it's such a monumental part of music history and a beautiful record, but he'd never heard it.
And your music of your time is always better than the previous, or like what's going on now, isn't it?
Yeah, it's all rubbish now, isn't it?
It is all rubbish.
I'm kidding.
We all had fun then. So I had an amazing time in the 80s.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
This part of your journey I found quite interesting because your mum and I think your grandmum were both involved with spiritual churches and went to different spiritual churches. Yet, I suppose like everybody, I made a lot of mistakes in the past. I shouldn't call them mistakes now, lessons, things I've done, but I've done lots of silly stuff in my life. And then you evolve and start to get into your 40s and hopefully get a little bit of wisdom and, make some better choices. Your mother being in the spiritualist church, I found quite surprising when, she'd left and didn't see you very much as a child. And I thought, well, that's not very spiritual. But I suppose, like everybody, she was young, she was learning, and, she evolved.
Absolutely, and I do forgive. I forgive her for that, and we've got to sometimes just put that aside. My grandma was into spiritualism. My great grandma, my grandma wasn't so much, but my mum was a spiritualist healer.
Her best friend, I think, was a well-known medium.
Yes, in Morecambe, called Jill Harland.
Right.
So Jill would go all around the churches. She was quite big around the UK, I think, at the time, and even in Europe.
Yeah. You hit 17 and then you said your mum told you to leave.
Yes.
What, just said,
well,
pack your stuff and
I guess at that time as well, I might have been a bit of a wayward teenager, as you are, and wanting to go out all the time. So she just says, basically, make your bed, lie in it, and go find yourself a flat.
Right. Because I've lived in a bedsit or a flatlet on a number of occasions. And
Yes.
there's been times in my life when I've had nothing. I haven't got much now, but I really had nothing, and just finding money for food was my priority. So I've experienced, what some might say shit or bust, where you've had money and then you've got nothing. And funnily enough, though, those periods when you have nothing, at the time, you don't appreciate it, but sometimes there can be really good periods of your life where it's not as complicated, and I think it's quite healthy to remember what's important. Food and shelter. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think it's made me the person I am today, because it's made me strong, because I've had to be strong.
Yeah.
I've been living on your own in a bedsit at that age. You just have to get on with it, and I could have easily gone back to Yorkshire. But I've met some really good friends, and I was having I was going out and enjoying myself, and I just wanted to just stay where I was.
Yeah. And you actually ended up working at Heysham Power Station.
Yeah, Heysham Power Station, in the offices there.
Well, it's a beautiful spot, apart from the power station.
It's
a beautiful spot. You're by the sea, and the other side of the hill where you've got the the church.
Yes.
Just right on the coast there, and there's a graveyard. We'd go and sit in there and meditate. It's a beautiful spot.
It's a beautiful energy around there too. I go often there with Daisy.
Is it called St. Patrick's Church or something?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, because
Yes.
I remember saying, oh, that's a bit of synchronicity and alignment. And off we
Yes.
went, and I took my shoes
Yeah.
off, grounded in the graveyard, and went and sat there and looked out at the sea, and it was a beautiful sunny day. And that was the first time I'd been to Heysham, and I've probably been back a dozen times since, you know.
Yeah, so I worked there.
Yeah. There's a couple of nice little pubs and
There is in the village.
cafes,
In the village itself, there is.
Then you set off, Debs, on your journey, and I love the word wanderlust. You've got this in your notes. And it includes butlins and being a chambermaid as well. So
Chambermaid,
that's
yeah.
a bit of a
I know,
turn
a
up
bit of a
for
contrast.
bit of a turn up for the book. So maybe tell us about that part of your journey.
Yeah, so when I was younger, obviously I worked at the power station, but then my friend Marie at the time said, do you fancy going to work at Butlins? And I thought, are you having a laugh? And then I thought about it for a season. I thought, do you know what? I was 19 at the time. And I said, yeah, let's go for it. And do you know what? It was the best year of my life.
You actually properly come out your shell then, haven't you?
I was... Absolutely. And then when I came back to live in Morecambe after being at Butlins, I did a quick spate at Pontins, which was up near Middleton Sands.
Awesome.
And I thought, I can't stay around it. I want to go off on my travels again. So me and my friend Julia, she was my best friend. She sadly passed away this September, which has been very hard.
How old was she?
She was 54.
So for me, that's very young.
It is. Know. She was very young, and she was my best friend, and we were one of them friends that you just gelled with. And, so we went to work in London, and we got a job at Claridge's, of all places, chambermaiding. And we lived upstairs in the, like Cinderella, in the top of the hotel. Yeah. And we used to do that. I did the Queen of Spain's room and Ruby Wax, and I think Barry Manilow stayed. It was, and then you'd go out on a night and come back at like 3 or 4 in the morning. Then you'd have these amazing, massive suites to clean, and you just think, "Oh no, I can't do this."
When you did that, did you get any like big tips off people or anything like that?
No, because what happened was, interestingly, the valets used to go in the rooms before you got in the room, and I think a lot of the people used to put the money under the pillow, and it was never there when you went in.
You said also, and this is a pivotal point in your journey probably, where you saw a ghost.
I did see a ghost, yes.
Tell us about that. What did it look like?
Well, Julia saw it as well. She actually, well, first of all, she'd said to me that somebody, like a force, had thrown her to the other side of the bedroom where we were sleeping. I said, "Oh, Julia, don't be saying that. We're sleeping in here." She's, "No, seriously." And then this particular night, I woke up to go to, because we had like a kitchen where we were staying. Went into the big room where we used to watch TV and things, and there was like this. I don't know. I looked twice and I thought, am I seeing things? But there was like this real dark, eerie figure in the room.
The outline, was the detail or just the outline?
It was the outline of a figure. Because, bearing in mind, Claridge's was a really old building, and there would have been maids that would have probably lived there many, many years prior, wouldn't there?
Like a spectre kind of thing?
Yes.
And would you have known, sometimes you can sense, even though you can't fully identify the details of a figure, male or female?
It was female.
Right.
Definitely female. Yeah.
So this is your first encounter visually seeing something from the spirit world?
Yes, I would say so. But from a point of view of sensing stuff, I feel things. So certainly with buildings, I think that was from a younger age. So I'd get like the real sense of, this place doesn't feel right, or don't go. I suppose we all have that innate or intuitive nature.
So would you class yourself as a medium?
Not necessarily as a medium. I do get messages, and more so now than I've ever done. But I think that's more when I do healing.
Yeah. And is it a feeling, or do you hear a voice, a clear voice?
I see images.
Right.
I see images, and I get a buzzing in my ear, my left ear. Every single night I get buzzing in my ears.
Not tinnitus then?
No, it's not tinnitus. I've thought, is
Yeah.
it tinnitus? And quite often that's when I'm in bed at night and I get these, like, this buzzingness, is when things come through.
Right. Well, it makes some sense to me, that, because I think our body it has the abilities to tune into lots of different frequencies that we don't know about and that we don't encounter every day. So if your vision is impaired in some way, or your focus is changed, or your hearing is damaged, or you have a buzzing, this kind of thing, when these operate on an unusual frequency, they vibrate on a different frequency, we have the ability to perceive and receive different access to different realms. You know, I believe that, different dimensions, we can see things.
I don't know if I told you, Patrick, in my notes, but when I was staying with my friend for some time, that I was going out with somebody who at the time it was a bit of a volatile relationship, shall we say.
Yeah, we've all had those when we're younger. Yeah.
Unfortunately, we have to kiss a lot of frogs before we meet our prince, which I now have. And I was woken up at 3 a.m, literally. Don't know why, don't know what for. And this voice in my head says, "Get in your car." And I'm like, "Get in my car."
So you could clearly hear a voice. Is that a bit frightening at first?
I couldn't understand why. I'm there in my Winsiet pyjamas, of all things. Just get in your car, and basically that was the instruction. So I goes down, didn't bother getting dressed, just wait. I'm thinking, what if the police pull me up at like 3 a.m, thinking, what's she doing?
She's on drugs.
Yeah, with her pyjamas
yeah.
on. And I was living in Lancaster at the time, and the car was just driving me. It was like, right, drive, keep driving, and keep going. So I kept going to Morecambe. And then all of a sudden, it came across the guy who was seeing's car, who was staying outside an house where he'd been telling me he wasn't seeing anybody.
Yeah.
He wasn't up to any good. He was staying with his mum and dad when ultimately he wasn't. He was seeing somebody else.
Yeah.
And it was like Spirit had said, "Look, there is your evidence. What else do you need?"
Did you confront him, or did you just
I did.
dump him?
I dumped him, but confronted him about it, and he couldn't believe it. He says, "You what? Spirit told you that."
Oh, you told him the full story.
Oh, I
you
told
didn't
him
just
how
say,
it
"I caught you out."
happened. Yeah, I told him. I caught him out, but I said how it happened. And he was like, "Oh, you're freaky, you're freaky."
Yeah. Well, that's, I suppose, your guides looking after you and saying, "This guy's no good," isn't it?
It was, and I often get that, and I get it for other people too, which is good.
On your journey, Debs, you've been to lots of mind, body, and spirit fairs, done a lot of soul searching. And we'll fast forward a little bit here, and you get to your 40s, and you're training Reiki to start with. So you're becoming spiritual.
Yeah, I felt I was led to doing the Reiki. I was at a time in my life where I felt that I wanted to do. I'm very much into holistic things. My mum obviously was a spiritualist healer. I've always had an interest around that. And then I did the Reiki course.
Yeah, and you were meditating as well. So
meditating, used to go to a lot of. I used to go to the spiritualist church a lot as well around that time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This next part is probably for me one of the most interesting or pivotal parts. So you're pursuing your life.
Yeah.
But at the time you were doing cheeky monkeys, is it called? Cheeky
monkey events.
Cheeky monkey events. So you're doing something. And I had this on the last show where a child would give you advice. Now, the child, in this instance, doesn't fully understand the logic or the science. The child just has a feeling. And children, quite often, where we overcomplicate everything, they simplify it. They keep it dead simple. And are you happy? No, you should do what you love. So your son gives you some advice. Tell us about that.
My son's a very sensitive young man. He's 16 now, and he's been very instrumental in doing what I'm doing now, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
And 9 years of age, I was, as you say, doing the Cheeky Monkey events, which were kind of, I think it led me on to doing what I'm doing now, because I got used to running events and things. But Kian, he's got ASD, which is autism spectrum disorder. So he's very literal, says it how it is.
I love that.
No airs and graces. And we were just coming home from an event one day that I was doing at Morecambe, and he said, Mummy said, I've seen you sat there, you look so miserable. I says, what? He said, no, you're not happy, don't do them. Please don't do them. I'm older. Hannah's a lot older than me. You don't need to do baby events.
How old was he then?
9.
9 years old.
9 years old.
Right. That's fantastic.
And he just turned round and said, why don't you do your spiritual events? You're into spiritual stuff. You're into mind, body, spirit things. Do spiritual things. And I kind of just went, bang. That light bulb moment was...
You say, when the student's ready, the teacher will appear. And who knew that Kian was your teacher?
He's my teacher. Yes, he is. He still is, massively. He even is now. There's a lot of, he's very... he's definitely come here for a reason.
Yeah.
That child.
What's your daughter called?
Hannah.
Hannah. So Hannah and Kian, you've got 2 children.
Yes.
Yeah. And how old are they both now?
So Hannah's 28,
yes.
Kian's 16. So I had a 12-year gap.
Wow. Yeah.
Yes.
So, Debs, we've now come to Roots of Life.
Yes.
So tell us where the name came from.
Again, that was a very interesting how it happened. Going back to what I mentioned before, Patrick, is I was lying in... This is when I get things through.
Yeah.
I was lying in bed one night and I just said, I need a name for doing my events. And then all of a sudden, this voice from nowhere went, Roots of Life. And I'm thinking...
That's all right, that.
Yes, I think it's really appropriate. Again... the logo is of the tree.
Yeah, I've seen the logo. Yeah.
And I love trees. I love nature. I love roots. I think roots is, I think it's very appropriate because roots is about, within and shows on the outside. So Roots of Life was then born.
Yeah.
From that moment.
And so it started off, Roots of Life, you started off by doing events, is that
did.
right? Yeah. Tell us the type of event you do.
So mainly mind, body, spirit events.
Yeah. So these are like fairs with stalls and you've got...
Yes, they are.
Okay.
Yeah. And the first one was at the Villa in the Lake District.
Yeah.
They have like mediums there as well and people doing therapies. The idea of them was so that the general public, more than anything, I wanted them to experience, people that are into that, but also new people that are maybe coming into kind of spirituality and that sort of thing, just to experience what sort of things are out there.
I've been to many mind, body and spirit fairs and generally... they're all awesome. You go around and you can have little tasters, so you can have a little massage, a little bit of Reiki, a little bit of reflexology.
Yes.
Lots of mediums as well. I recently went to one in Swinton, I think.
Okay.
I know quite a lot of ladies that were there.
Yes.
And a lady's just done a show with me on here called Donna Webb. And she's done a lot of work for the Samaritans, but she's also a therapist, a holistic therapist. And yeah, I normally go in and cram about 6 months worth of therapies in a day and have a bit of everything. Yeah.
The great thing about it as well, I have talks. So I do talks throughout the day with some very interesting people. So people can sit and listen to different talks about, might be colour therapy, auras.
I've had my aura photograph done by a guy called Frank.
I know Frank.
Do you know
Frank comes to my events.
Well, Frank, who I think he's about 135 now,
He
isn't he?
Yeah, bless him.
But
From Liverpool.
Yeah, beautiful man.
He is. So Frank comes to my events. He's been to nearly every one, I think.
Right.
Great.
I've been up to the Harmony Hub in Chorley, which is Liz Whittle.
Yes, I know
And
Liz.
I've done some sessions there, taken part, and I've spoken, taught there as well. And also in Bolton here. And Frank goes around some of these places doing his photography, And it's fascinating, And I like him because He's quite funny as well. He's quite dry.
is.
Yeah.
He's a lovely character. And again, you know, it's bringing like-minded people. I see it as bringing like-minded people together, who are wanting to look at alternative ways of living, really, as much as anything.
I think you should always try these holistic or alternative therapies before you get on the medication, if you can. You know, medication for me is a last resort.
That was one of the big things as well for me. My friend has suffered from a really bad back for many years, and I could see the medication that they were just ploughing her with was like, gabapentin, and then she went on to morphine, then she was swigging off from a morphine bottle.
Yeah.
And I kept saying, look, I'm really worried about and concerned about you because you're only like in your 40s. What are you going to be like in your 70s? You know, she tried what's called the Dawn method. I don't know if you've heard of that, from Germany.
No.
And believe it or not, she couldn't believe that what happened after having that procedure done. You know, she came off the bed, she was, I can't believe it. I'm actually be able to stand up. I've got no pain.
Yeah.
And this is the thing, I want people to try and understand that there's prevention rather than
Absolutely.
cure.
I talk about this. It's always the maintenance. Try and stay healthy rather than get sick and then end up on pharmaceuticals.
Exactly.
You know, look at your diet, the company you keep, exercise.
Yes.
Any alternative therapy. What have you got to lose? Try that first.
Nothing at all. And this is the great thing for me. I'm really passionate about what I do, and I try and promote as many businesses as I you know, I'm so passionate about it, Patrick.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to get out there the message. Please try all these wonderful therapies because, you know, you'll be surprised what they can do for you.
Yeah. Maybe tell us then. We're going to get to the magazine now.
Yes.
And this magazine is available online and in a hard copy, which you've got there.
It is, yes. So this was produced, my first one came out last autumn before COVID.
So just over a year ago.
Over a year ago.
And it's a seasonal magazine, isn't it?
It's a quarterly, seasonal. Yeah, so we have lots of things in it, from anything from the environment, your lifestyle, family health, animal health, therapies. We have taster tokens.
And it's free, isn't it?
It's free.
And it lists, I think, you know, there's probably about 100 places all over sort of the northwest where you can collect it, isn't it?
Yes, so we put them in major supermarkets, health food shops, spas, chemists, doctor surgeries. Obviously, we can't at the moment. Unfortunately, due to what's happening out there, we've not been able to get the last 2 issues out.
Right.
But I thought, right, this January coming, it's going out. So that's where I'm at this week I'm at print deadline, getting everything wrapped up for it to be out there in early Jan.
Is it because, I know you say we couldn't do the last couple of issues, is that from a printer? Is it because
it was more to do with where I could put it, because the government stipulated that you weren't allowed to pick anything up. Right. And not many people were picking things up. So when I spoke to advertisers, they were a little bit reluctant about going in.
I will keep my opinions to myself. But the fact is, you can go into a supermarket and pick up a can of beans or a pack of eggs or a carton of milk that somebody else has just picked up before you, but you can't pick up the magazine.
No. So any hairdressers that were going in, we're not allowed. Any spas, we're not allowed to take magazines. So I just felt I needed to take that, as fortunate as it sounds, because I could put it through doors, but it's more people have to pick this up because they want to pick it up.
Yeah, and I think as well, people probably need it now more than ever.
I think this is going to be massive. Wellness is going to be huge going forward into 2021, and self-care is a priority. It's a huge priority for everybody, I think.
So, Debs, tell us now, this is exciting news.
It is exciting.
This is your app, and it's being developed alongside with Lancaster University.
Yes.
Why? What's happening?
Well, I don't know if you're aware that there's a new health innovation hub at Lancaster University now.
I did not know.
Oh, right. Well, there is, and it's just been built. Unfortunately, because of situation, people can't go in there, but it's an amazing building. So if you ever go into Lancaster, do have a look at it, and look on the website as well. So they were giving funding to health and wellbeing businesses, And I was very fortunate that I got somebody to build me an app.
Right.
And interestingly, before I came here today, I've been on a call with the guys to see the developments of it.
Right. So they're developing it for you, or you're guiding them and you're doing it together?
I'm guiding them what to put in it.
Yeah.
The idea behind the app is it's going to be complementing the magazine.
Yeah.
So people can read the magazine through the app. They're also able to put discount vouchers on there, offers. So say if you're a therapist and you may want to offer a 10% discount, we're putting also workshops, training, what's in the area. So that's looking like it's going to be launched early 2021.
Right. So that's exciting then, isn't it?
I'm really excited because I think the thing with what's happening, I think where we were in industrial revolution back 100 years ago,
Yeah.
we are going through a digital revolution and we have to move with the times.
I'm resisting it to a degree because I know a lot of people do online stuff at the minute, but due to COVID.
Yeah.
And I won't do Zoom. I won't do it. I think that once you move in that direction, it's a personal choice. For example, Donna Webb, who was on here, she works and does certain groups, support groups with bereavement, suicide, things like this. And so for her, it's essential. But I think when you move into that digital framework and you're not getting one-to-one contact with people, sometimes it's hard to go back. Once you step forward, it's quite difficult to go back to the way things were.
Absolutely.
So.
In fact, just on that, Patrick, I've done 3 virtual events. My last one was about 2 weeks ago. I can't do another one.
I've been asked to do a lot of meditation over this period.
Yeah.
And I'm not doing a lot of meditation classes anyway. I stopped a couple of years ago because I want to do other projects, But I won't do Zoom meditation. I won't do it,
Yeah.
And for me, it's just not what I want to do.
I get that. And what you can't do is, and I noticed this after the last virtual event I did, you cannot create that energy.
Exactly.
There's no way that I can create from, I did it for a full day on a Sunday. And again, I did it from in a way for my people who advertise with me. You just can't create what you come into an event is just completely different to seeing it through a screen.
The best analogy I could give to somebody with this is with a gong bath. If you listen to a gong bath or a live orchestra or whatever, but if you listen to a gong bath on a stereo, it ain't that big a deal. Go and sit in a room when you can feel the vibration, the sound waves coming off that gong when it's out of whack and it resonates with different parts of your body, matches that frequency and removes blocked energies. That doesn't happen through a speaker. You have to be in the room, and I think it's the same for me with meditation and certain things. I think you need to be in the room with them and feel their energy.
Absolutely. And I'm hoping that I can get my next physical event out there, March or April 2021.
Yeah.
That's when I hope to do my next one.
So, Debs, what I'm going to do, I'm going to ask you some quick fire questions about the magazine.
Yeah.
Okay. So, if I want to get a copy of the magazine, where am I likely to get one at the minute?
At the minute, they're in the next one. They're coming out in January.
Yes.
Will be mainly in like major supermarkets. So places like mainly Sainsbury's, some co-ops, spas.
Okay.
Chemists, we put them in a lot of the chemists as well.
Can you get the magazine online?
You can look at it online through my website.
Yes.
Yes.
Right. Okay. The finance for the magazine's free, which is fantastic. So how's the magazine financed? I'm assuming there's some advertisement.
It's financed through advertising, yes. And we're also putting together in the new year some affordable packages for anybody wanting to go in it as well.
Do you have anybody helping you, or are you doing this on your own?
I do have people helping me. I've got an editor called Frank.
Okay.
He oversees any of the editorial coming in and checks whether it's suitable or not. And he does all the copywriting for me. I have a lovely lady called Ali who lives in the northeast. And she does all my artwork.
So it's not a one-man show, then you do have a few helpers.
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
I couldn't do that on my own.
I was going to say, because it's a mammoth project to try and pull off on your own. You need help.
You
maybe.
do.
Yeah, good. What's next for Debs Brookes?
What's next for Debs Brookes?
Now you've got the app, the magazine, you're doing the events, maybe a test pilot for NASA. What's next?
Well, yeah, don't get me on that one. The problem with me is I'm one of those people, is a trailblazer. So I get an idea in my head and I'm like, I run with it.
Yeah.
So I have to sometimes rein myself in, I'm afraid. But what I would love more than anything is to, get more of the alternative things out there to the members of the public. It's going to be massively needed. And what I'd like to do with that is like look at maybe in the not too distant future is franchising Roots of Life, so that different areas have they can do the magazine and events with the same branding.
Wonderful. And you did mention you've still got at the minute, although you're not doing sort of the mind, body and spirit first, you do have some events happening, don't you?
Again, I do every week on a Monday.
Yeah.
Since the lockdown, we have been doing what's called Keep Well Monday.
Yeah.
And I have inspirational speakers, a bit like what you're doing with me today, who on Zoom, who do a talk at 11 o'clock on a Monday about, that's all recorded and uploaded to my YouTube, Roots of Life YouTube channel.
Okie dokie. So, Debs, I've come along and I want to find out about your events, or maybe want to ask you some questions, and I want to have a look at the magazine page or maybe the wellness events page. So maybe tell us, where do we go? I want to find out about Roots of Life. Where are the best places to look?
The best place to go is my website, which is www.therootsoflife.co.uk.
Okie dokie.
There is a directory listing on there of therapies as well. You can also read the last magazines on the website too, and there's my contact details. Also, I have 2 Facebook pages.
Okay.
One is the Roots of Life events and one is the Roots of Life magazine.
Okay. And you're also on Instagram, LinkedIn and Twitter?
I am.
And if they want to see your YouTube channel, what did they search for?
Roots of Life.
Right.
So they just put that into the search engine, and there's lots of talks. I also interview people that advertise with me about how they got into their business. So there's talks uploaded about that as well.
Yeah. Some of these talks, you've done Zoom interviews. I think I'd seen those on Facebook. Is that right?
I put them on Facebook as well.
Yeah.
I share them on Facebook.
Yeah.
Yes.
Debs Brookes, thank you very much for bringing your sunshine into the studio.
Oh, thank you, Patrick, and thank you for having me today. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. It's been a pleasure, and you're a fascinating lady, and you're doing a lot of good. Now more than ever, I think people need wellness and holistic therapies and health, and you're doing that. You're connecting people, so that's wonderful.
That's what I like doing.
Yeah. Okay, folks, I'm going to leave you with a quote to close the show from the book From Pills to Peace, and the quote's by myself. If something is broken, in order to fix something, first you must take a look inside. If you're trying to find the answer to all your problems in the external world, you'll not find them. You're looking in the wrong place. You need to go inwards and do some inner work. Quite often, meditation's a good way to start with this. This has been the Midnight McBride Show, show number 54, Roots of Life. You can listen to this show. It's out 3 times weekly now on YouTube. It also goes then onto a audio podcast on Podbean, Spotify, iTunes, Amazon, Google and some others. You can listen to me every Monday night on the radio, on Salford City Radio 94.4 FM, and that's at 11 o'clock till midnight, or midnight till midnight with the Mind, Body and Spirit Show. You can go to my website, midnightmcbride.com. You can find me on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter and Facebook. And you can also buy From Pills to Peace, the paperback and Kindle version, on Amazon and in a few other places. And you can get the audiobook on Amazon, ACX, Audible and a few other places as well. This has been Midnight McBride. I'll see you next time. Shalom.